Greetings.
Hey everybody, 3 Days Fitter here, and today I am going to show you Cypher tips and tricks on the map Ascent. Ascent? 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 I don't know. Today I'm going to show you how to use tripwires, the Cyphers Camera, and Cyber Cages. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do one-ways and all sorts of crazy things. But first I have some tips for you. Be sure to subscribe or else you're gonna end up like these guys over here. I don't think you want to end up like these guys, so please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Just kidding, please, but seriously, do it. Anyways, starting off first here at Site Air. Now, let's start off with the Cyber Cage. Cyber Cage summons or spawns, it makes thing. It makes a little cage where it makes a noise whenever an enemy enters it. And it also kind of barricades an enemy off of certain entrances, telling them to, not go there, or else it'll reveal their location by making the sound. Now here by this entrance, I'm going to show you how to make a one-way by using these two locations right here. So first what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find this little pile of, I guess, debris or dirt or something. You're going to want to count 1, 2, 3 bricks. You're going to want to look up and aim at that little line right there, the first line to the right, or to the left, I mean. Then throw the cyber cage and it'll land perfectly right there on the edge. Then you're going to want to do the same for the right side, so you're just going to count 1, 2 this time, then aim at the line. And then go ahead and toss your cyber cage. After that, as you can see, we have them both set up in pretty identical locations. You're going to want to move back and go ahead and set them both off, and this creates a nice one-way to go ahead and pick off some enemies and whatnot, and it actually makes a pretty good one-way, although it is it's a very short one. But yeah, it's still effective if you can get a pick or two, especially when they're all rushing in as well. Another tactic to know is by including a tripwire. By including a tripwire, you can also make your chances of getting an enemy even higher. For example, by including the tripwire, you can, I guess, snare an enemy, and well, you'll see. For example, if I set off these two cages, the tripwire basically becomes invisible, and you cannot even see it, even when you go in the middle of it. Of course, even though I am the owner of the tripwire, of course I can see it. But when the enemies are going to be rushing in, they won't be able to see the sides because of the cages, and it works quite well. And you can also do some crazy angles with this door. For example, if you point out the corner here, you can do some really weird angles, and I've seen people do stuff like this, but I wouldn't recommend it since it's super easy to avoid. And of course, you can do things such as this. Now, honestly, I like doing this because it creates a kind of a block off for the area in the back. So, for example, if they try to go in the back, they can try to camp there and, I guess, shoot you down. But this tripwire here prevents them from doing that and lets you know if they are. And if you're willing to, you can also place a tripwire there, which if your enemies are doing a slow push, it would actually help a lot to know if they're there or not. Although they could get alerted that, you're watching them, and they could immediately just break the tripwire, but that just lets you know, hey, they're there. Another cyber cage placement is, a lot of y'all probably know about this, but I find it really handy, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell y'all about it. So if you throw a cyber cage on top of heaven and go ahead and activate it, sure, it spawns a little thing, but it's actually really helpful because if you spawn another, it helps you move around without being seen and able to pick off your enemies under heaven. And once you do that, well, it's pretty much a clear sight. As for camera placements, at the very beginning of buying phase or after buying phase, normally what I like to do is I like to put the camera right there under those vines. Or vines or leaves or whatever, and as you can see, it completely hides your camera, but also lets you be able to see them in the process, kind of like a one-way. And you can the dart, it works perfectly, and although you will be hidden for a certain amount of time, but they will figure it out eventually, which kind of stinks because the next couple of rounds they'll know we're gonna hide it. And if you're just entering from heaven, a place I'd recommend is just the closest place you can. So, such as here, as I'm showing. And if you're stuck in a bunch of gunfire while you're stuck behind these boxes, you have 2 places, 1 or 2. What I like to do is I like to place it right here, because it gives me a good look of where they are, including if they're planting right behind those giant, I guess, structures. Also, do not forget to don't forget about this door here. They'll try to close it, but if they don't, or at least during buying phase, what you want to do is you want to put a tripwire there. Either you can put it like in an X formation here, just for fun. Although I don't think you're here for fun. I think you're here for being competitive. But yeah, they can just walk right through it. That's just something to think about with doors like arches like that. You can kind of play around with the angles and the tripwires and how they're, I guess, how you can angle them. Also, don't forget to close off this door in case they're coming from the mid. Because if they're coming from mid and they're just gonna mow you down. Here. As they like to come through catwalk normally, from what I've seen. Now, of course, even though this strategy works, it's pretty obvious, and if they see that you're the only Cypher on the team, then they're gonna know. But what I like to do is I like to put it on this vase. And putting it on this vase, it's not so obvious, and it's a very, I guess, unusual spot. And they won't know where to shoot. Also, here's a tip. Whenever you see weird objects in your room, try to put your tripwire on them. You'll be amazed at how many angles you get from them. For example, this tree. I'm getting a bunch of angles from this, and it can set up some pretty good traps. For example, this spot right here. It sets up a pretty okay trap. So, for example, if they're trying to sweep the room, they could get caught in the tripwire. And also be sure to look out for things like lamps and whatnot. Lamps are normally a pretty good source for angles, but they're not always the best. And also doors like with arches like that, they can give you a variety of angles. For example, like this. Although sometimes it might be a waste of a tripwire, but sometimes it can actually save you. But then again, I would just stick to the normal one tripwire door. Anyway, if they're not coming through there or there, and they're just coming through here, trying to flank you, a good spot I would recommend is right about here on the wall attaching to the wooden crates. It's actually pretty good. It's not as obvious because if you put it on the doorway itself, they're just going to immediately see it and they're going to know. So if you put it on the wooden crates and they just march straight through it, they're immediately going to get caught and let you know where they are. Although it's still a little obvious, so you probably put it like at the top of the stairs. Actually, you might want to make it a little closer, otherwise they'll just might find out about it sooner. And in this hallway, I guess you could call it, or not really a hallway, but area, there's a lot of different angles. For example, on this pipe and on the wall. It also creates a nice long tripwire, and gives you a good idea of what you can and can't place on. For example, here, kind of divides the place into two parts. And for example, here, if you just want to completely lock it out, in case for flankers. Although normally there isn't any, but sometimes some will come through mid, and they'll just come from behind. So, and also I would suggest if you're worried about flankers, and if they are flanking, well, then I would suggest putting some on the stair, probably one on this staircase. I'm just showing two, just to give you an idea. But normally one is efficient, or efficient enough rather. Also on walls like this, where you can kind of see bumps on the walls, gives you a good amount of angles to place your tripwires. And for example, you can make them slanted like this. And normally if it's slanted, they'll be immediately people look to the right and then start shooting. But since it's slanted, they'll just completely miss it. And eventually they'll get stunned. Or rather, I guess, more stunned than they already are. Alright, that's enough of this site. Let's move on to the next. Actually, before we move on to the next site, I want to talk about mid. Mid is probably one of the most important places to look out for, because a lot of people like to go through mid to a site, and so mid's probably one of the most important. Of course, you can place a tripwire here, but it's more obvious, and what stinks is that you can't really put any tripwires anywhere else on this area. And it really stinks. So a good place I found to prevent them from coming through is this box right here, and if you just place it right there, it's almost invisible. Like, you cannot see it at all. And there's a lot of people who like to try hugging the box and just walking around, and they try to look at the corners of the area over there and see if there's anyone there. But by then, they'll be caught by the tripwire. And if you're standing over here, you can easily just mow them down. They'll be looking from left to right to see where the tripwire is, but there's no walls there, so they won't know. Also, this little stone slab pillar thing, I don't know what it is, but this thing here gives you a lot of different angles, and it's actually pretty good, but at the same time, it's not great. Sure, it gives you like this angle right here, but at the same time, it gives you not so great angles such as this, and it's not really that all great. I also would not recommend placing a tripwire here on the staircase, mainly because not many people take the staircase. They either just jump right over it, such as this, or they just jump down into the flowers. And sure, I would recommend putting a tripwire there, but unfortunately you can't. So the closest thing you can do is probably put one there, in case they jump down from over there. Like if there's an op there, they would normally jump down to here, and they might get caught on the tripwire, which is actually pretty handy to know where they are. Because normally people with ops are probably the most annoying to take out, in my opinion. Now for the market area, you normally just want to put like maybe one tripwire here. You're probably thinking, okay, so with so many spots, how do I know where to handle my tripwires? Well, you want to keep on constantly be moving your tripwires and adapting to your enemies, where your enemies, I guess, what their pattern is. By constantly adapting, you're going to want to constantly move your tripwires. Constantly moving your tripwires, well, it's basically just setting them up for failure. You can add more layers of tripwires and adding a camera just to make sure you know where you actually know where they are and watching out behind your back. Because I feel like for people like Cypher, they really need to watch the back. So that's why, you know, tripwires such as these are really helpful. Anyway, moving on to the final part of the video, B-site. So B-site actually has some pretty cool things you can do here, such as one-ways. So one of the one-ways you can do here, actually, before that, yeah, so here's a one-way. So it normally attacks if you're it normally works if you're an attacker, but since this video is mainly on defenders, I'll just be quick about saying this one. So first you want to stand on this little cracked slab and then aim for the end of the shadow on top of the little sign. Then you can kind of throw a little cyber cage up there on the door and activate it.
Cage triggered.
You'll know if you're on attacking team, you'll know if the defenders are coming through the door. Of course, you can just close the door, but if the door's already been broken, this is a pretty good strategy too. And you could, while the cyber cage is still there, you can probably throw some rearrange and throw your tripwires around, or maybe just put one right there as well. And not this crack, because obviously it's not the crack in the stone, because it's not gonna reach. This one, you can tell mainly because of the little thing on the floor behind it. It looks like a little pattern on the floor. Now for the one-ways. So this is back to the more the defenders. So what you want to what you want to look for is this little crack in the wall that's pretty much smack in the middle of the door. Not this one, but this one. Then you want to kind of turn to that area, and then you want to look for the kind of brown spot underneath the sign. Now this may take a couple of tries, so this is why you want to do it during buy phase. As you can see, it perfectly latched on to the doorway, just like in the beginning. So what you want to do, you want to go back to the same spot you were before. Then you want to kind of find the same spot, not too much to the side, but more to the middle of the door. And as you can see here, you kind of want to aim a little higher, and ignore my attempts to get it on this side. As you can see, I eventually get it, and it makes for a pretty good one-way. You just got to know where to aim, and as you can see here, it took me a couple tries. So if you're hiding back here as an offender, you can probably put your camera up here and kind of look through it and see, you know, if they're kind of appearing back there, then you can go ahead and set up your one-way and then start firing away. Of course, they can immediately just back away, but you're still going to get a couple taps on them, a couple shots on them. And the camera's really handy too. Now let me just go ahead and set all these off just to get them out of all the way. Those aren't really part of the video. Those are just the ones that I missed. Anyways. Of course, you can have your regular just tripwires, such as here and there. But honestly, better tripwire that I found was not only these two, but if you go to the corner here and kind of just throw it on there, It creates a nice open area for the attackers, and once they see that they haven't been tripped by a wire yet, they'll be like, oh, I'm safe, so I can go in this wide area. But then when they go in the wide area, they immediately get tripped. You can also put your tripwire here, which, annoyingly, in this little area, there's not really any cool angles you can put it on, such as, like, the little roof or the lamp. So, annoyingly, you're just going to have to do a normal tripwire. Not as cool, I know, but it's pretty much the only thing I could find. If y'all find anything else, though, let me know. And I'll be sure to include it in a later video. Also, for this staircase right here, be sure to put your tripwire above the staircase and not on it, such as this, because apparently people can literally just jump right over it without being punished by the tripwire. So what you want to do is kind of put it a little high before the staircase, kind of on this level, so people can't really crouch or jump over it. And if they try jumping over it, they'll just get snared by it, which I think is pretty handy. Now, if you've gotten pushed back to sight, obviously some good places to put your tripwires are, or tripwires, sorry. Of course, there's this little thing, but I don't know why I put it here. It's not very helpful at all. Plus, it was just a misclick anyways. You don't want to put your tripwire here, because obviously they can jump right over it. So maybe just kind of block off the sides, making them not be able to plant. Of course, they could plant somewhere else, but this is just preventing them from coming even... It's preventing them from cornering you, which is actually pretty good. Obviously, you want to put your tripwires in probably the most obvious places, but even the most obvious places still work. Also, some good camera placements for this side on defending, which you want probably on the giant wall here. I mean, there's not really any secret places you can put it. Also, something funny I found was putting a camera on a camera, which I thought that was pretty funny. There's nothing special about it. I just thought it was kind of funny, you know. Anyway. And for camera on the back side over here, probably just somewhere we can see pretty much all sides, all angles and whatnot, just to make sure that they're not coming or anything. And for back here, well, there's not really a good place. There's not really a good place for back here. Plus, it's kind of useless, considering that since you're going to be cornered, they're not going to be behind you anyways, so. It's more for like an attacking kind of thing. Attackers. Anyways. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Like I said at the beginning, be sure to subscribe and like and share. Otherwise, yeah, them. Anyways, I'll catch y'all later. Like for more? See ya.